Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland on the Majority Report. Joining us now, Dave Weigel. He covers politics for Semafor. And one of my favorite Twitter and followers and follows and
reporters,
the Semafor. I get it's emailed directly to me, your reporting, and I love it. Dave, always a pleasure to have you.
No, good to be back. Thanks, guys.
Good to see you.
So, were you out in Wisconsin covering this?
I was.
Okay.
Yeah, not the last week. I was there when Don Jr. was campaigning for the Republican nominee and when Tim Walz was campaigning for the Democratic nominee. So I was there a week ago, but you could see what the plan was.
They're not technically Republican and Democrat, right? I mean, it's a non-partisan.
Right. You can explain it. Go ahead.
Well, it's a nonpartisan election, but it's quite clear. There's a liberal and a conservative running for the Supreme Court.
Right.
And this will determine it's a liberal that is stepping down. So this will determine the majority controlling. Right now, it's the majority is controlled by the liberals.
Yeah, this would be a conservative majority for 2 years if conservatives win this. The Democrats, and you've probably talked to Ben Winkler about this, they had a long-term plan, which is not even done yet. The plan was to win the state Supreme Court, bring a case that would break the gerrymanders, which already happened. The state legislature is not as gerrymandered as it was. They're in a position to actually maybe win the state Senate next year, which was impossible under the old gerrymander. And the Republican plan is win this election, bring a new lawsuit. They won't say who will do it. Bring a new lawsuit, re-gerrymander the state, undo what Democrats did. To prevent that, Democrats are just trying to hold their majority.
And we should be clear, when Republicans had gerrymandered Wisconsin, a 57% electoral win in terms of votes in Wisconsin brought about something like 65% control for Republicans. That's how much it was gerrymandered. Now, to be fair in there, you had some races where people aren't running against each other, et cetera, and some places where the votes get rolled up. But that was the dynamic.
Yeah, it was impossible for Democrats to win the legislature. And because they couldn't win the legislature, impossible to get a 50-50 map. Right now, it's a 8 seats in a 50-50 swing state. Republicans have 2. Democrats can kind of compete for the third one. And the way this
you're
race
talking
started,
about Congress.
Yeah, for Congress, for the House of Representatives. And so the original focus of Republican messaging on this race was there was a fundraiser for the Democratic back candidate, Susan Crawford. Susan Crawford's the liberal majority candidate. Brad Schimmel, former Attorney General, would be the conservative candidate. One fundraiser where people pointed out in Reid Hoffman's group, hey, if we win this, we could remap the state. And Republicans started to say this whole election is an attempt by Democrats to rig the state so that they're going to get rid of the first district and the third district and make them Democratic and will never win again, et cetera, et cetera. If there was nonpartisan redistricting, you probably would have for let's say some safe R seats, some safe D seats, and some swing seats. That's how it started. But then as Elon got more involved in this race, he picked that argument up and he made it entirely about voting in this election will change the course of civilization. You need to do this so that activist judges around the country are punished because they're not letting Trump and me do what I want. It changed, but it started with this a little bit esoteric redistricting argument. It got a lot more politically intense.
Just give us a sense of the money disparity that's being spent in these races, because when Elon Musk decides to move in, it all of a sudden changes the physics of everything.
Right. Well, it is. If you look up all of the Democratic spending, all of the Republican spending, it is pretty even, but it would have been a Democratic advantage, but for Elon Musk. He's going to end up having spent at least $23 million, and that's between donating to the state party, which he did pretty recently, having America PAC spend money in the state, and having Building America's Future PAC buy ads in the state. And the ads have mostly those three things have different tasks, but they basically have ended what was the Democratic fundraising advantage, which was a combination of big donors giving to the state party. That's an old Scott Walker law that's still in the books. You can give unlimited money to the state party, and Democrats having good small dollar fundraising. So Susan Crawford, a judge from Dane County, has lapped Republicans in personal fundraising for her campaign, small donors. If you watch the debate, you can hear the Republican-backed candidates say that this is bad. This is out-of-staters trying to buy the election, and you can hear Crawford hit back. Yes, but Elon Musk. This is a guy out of state who's trying to bury the support from Wisconsinites and people from around the country. The small dollar donors is trying to bury them with literally giant checks. That's what the race has been about. The conversation about the race in Wisconsin for the last 72 hours is, wait a second, who is actually trying to buy this? Is it small donors? Is it J.B. Pritzker because he gave $1 million to the state party? Or is it Elon Musk outspending everybody on his own?
Well, also, I was shocked to hear you say that final total, because this morning before you came on, I was reading your article in Semafor about it, that it was $11 million when I guess you wrote this up maybe 10, 11 days ago, and now it's more than doubled. Like, what can you talk about that broader context, and also Elon Musk's case that could be delineated by the Wisconsin Supreme Court about his dealerships for Tesla, which I think is a part of his motivation, right?
It's part of his motivation. So his rhetoric at his own events and on X, etc., is we need to do this to stop illegal voting. We need to do this to save DOGE. We need to do this to stop illegal immigration. Everything, every Republican issue. But yeah, so Tesla wants to sell cars without dealerships. It sued in Wisconsin before this race started. It was not winning that case. That was one of the first things Democrats grabbed onto. Is it seems bad that a guy who wants a particular thing that might come before the Wisconsin Supreme Court is spending all this money in our state. Because whatever you think of George Soros donating to the Democratic Party of Wisconsin, he's not saying, and also you're going to kick back to me a bunch of things I want, right? You're gonna hand over a lot of state investments to my hedge fund. No, it's that. It's kind of understood that the big donors on the Democratic side were just liberals who said, please do some liberal things if you win, but nothing for me personally. And yes, Musk has a personal interest in the state. Schimmel has said that he would rule it in a nonpartisan fashion on anything Elon does, but he's also commented on Elon and said he's doing the right thing. He's very pro-DOGE. It's very muddled, and this is not news to anybody listening to this, but the law exists in different ways. You have no money, and if you have $400 billion, Musk operates with impunity because he can have lawyers drag everything out. He can he has the confidence that if there's a federal crime that Donald Trump is going to pardon people. He has the confidence that he can pressure judges into recusing. If somebody sues, if he wants to sue somebody, he sues them in Texas where he has a favorable judge. So Musk has been operating in this like he operates everywhere. I mean, the same way that Musk is confident that no one's going to really nail SpaceX for polluting some space junk near Brownsville, Texas. But in this race, the Republican messaging that he's emphasized is not even about him. It's, yes, I'm great. I'm Elon Musk. You all support me. DOGE is doing the right thing. It's if you want the Trump agenda to succeed. We know you don't normally care about a court race, and whatever you think of me, come out and vote for Donald Trump. So America PAC, his PAC, it's stuff it's sending to the doors is all about Trump. Vote for Brad Schimmel to support Donald Trump. Elon had Sean Duffy at his rally in Green Bay last night as the transportation secretary, saying this election is a way to show your support for DOGE and for Donald Trump. That's what they're doing. So Elon gets some benefits if this goes the right way. But he's also happily reframing everything as pro-Trump, because what do MAGA voters care more about? Do they care more about Teslas being sold in Wisconsin, or do they care more about supporting their beloved president?
Right. All right. So, and I want to sort of like pivot to Florida, these races, but from a political matter, like what is for him to get this involved? I don't know that it's just Tesla. I'm sure that's, things can be a twofer. And that DOGE stuff, but just talk to us about how the politics influence, and that also brings us to Florida. And has Musk invested in Florida? It doesn't feel like he has that much. And if not, why? Because it has a similar dynamic, it seems to me. I mean, Wisconsin could be a swing of like three congressional seats by, in 2 years. But the results of these things, even if the Democrats lose in Florida, which, odds are that they will.
They think they'll lose. Yeah.
But it still makes a difference where the points land, right? Because this is going to influence lawmakers, period.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, one question coming out of this race is, one, can you convince MAGA voters to show up for somebody who's not Donald Trump? Because Democrats have had pretty good special elections, flipped a couple seats already this year in Iowa and Pennsylvania because MAGA voters are not coming out. They had this in Wisconsin last year. Tammy Baldwin did not get as many votes as Kamala Harris. It's just that a bunch of people voted for Donald Trump and then didn't care about the rest of the Republican Party. That was a benefit even when Trump was on the ballot. So how do you get people to say, my vote is about Donald Trump, I'm going to come out? If you can turn the MAGA voter of a presidential year into a regular Republican voter, then obviously you're going to benefit in a lot of ways. That has not been happening in these places. That was not happening in early voting in Florida. So the reason Republicans started to get worried is because they had a candidate, Randy Fine, who is personally, if you talk to Republicans in Tallahassee, talk to DeSantis, personally obnoxious, a very pugnacious Republican that a lot of people in the party don't like and didn't want to support and didn't give money to, barely running a campaign, not doing much of an early vote, Democrats outrunning him. And their whole argument has been support Donald Trump, show up on election day. That's the thing. What kind of politics are possible if you just get Trump voters to show up in non-Trump elections? Because I wrote in one of my stories about this that in 2019, Republicans won a Supreme Court race in Wisconsin partly by sending a bunch of mail to voters and saying, hey, if you're a Republican voter, aren't you still angry about the Brett Kavanaugh hearings? To get revenge for Brett Kavanaugh and to beat liberal judges like the ones Brett Kavanaugh is not, vote for our candidate. And it was pretty effective. But it's been competing against Democrats in Wisconsin under Ben Wickler being very, very well organized, beating all their metrics, turning out for everything. And Wickler is very blunt, that our voters are furious and on tilt all the time, and their voters are pretty happy that Trump is owning the libs. So we don't think they're going to turn out the same way.
Let's play this Josh Weil article, because I have also ad, I should say. I also have a theory about, like, if Musk showing up actually hurts the cause more than helps. But I want to ask you about that. But first, this is from Florida's 6th district. This is around the Daytona Beach area. This is the race that they think they can win. There's another one, 1st district, and that was Gates's old seat. This is Michael Waltz's old seat. And the irony is, he may be out of the administration before anybody actually takes this. We'll
see.
Is sworn in. In Congress because of his inability to his fat thumbs, I guess, when it comes to his signal chats. But let's play this.
I'm Josh Weil, and I approve this message.
Randy Fine, a violent, corrupt politician, so radical and dangerous, he supports the effort to cut $880 billion for Medicaid, devastating disabled children and those in nursing homes. Fine is so unhinged and anti-American, he supports the idea that Social Security is the biggest Ponzi scheme of all time. He wants to cut $700 billion, stealing from your retirement. Randy Fine, unhinged, un-American.
I'm Josh.
Oh, Josh Weil. So he's the Democrat. My favorite part of this is the Chinese communist flag that's interspersed with no explanation. Yeah, but they're trying to get people that are in that area, right? Retirees.
This is what I find fascinating about this, because the mayor who won in that special election in Pennsylvania, he ran against DOGE and Elon Musk and didn't mention Donald Trump's name. And that whole ad, if you look at that ad, all of those things tie back either to the Republican House or Elon Musk. And because, the sort of vague notion that Musk is working for China in this instance. And I'm curious as to your take on this, because in running against Musk and the Republicans, everybody knows who empowered Musk and the Republicans on the Democratic side, but you're not sort of like ringing that, Pavlov's dog, like Trump's in this race type of thing for his voters. Has anybody articulated that type of strategy? Because I'm seeing that and it makes total sense to me.
No, that's very smart, and that's also the Democratic message in Wisconsin is Musk is trying to buy this. They don't mention the Trump thing. They think that the way Republicans are getting Trump and Musk in the race is not going to help the party. They think it excites their voters, but yes, in both cases they want to emphasize Musk because Musk is less popular. Musk doesn't have that cult of personality. There are some young men who think Elon Musk is amazing and don't love Trump as much, but it's pretty marginal. So you're right. That is how they focus this, is that it's about these guys trying to rip you off. And they're very comfortable. Every Democrat's very comfortable saying these guys are trying to rip off your benefits to send the money back to the richest people in the world. Very populist message. Maybe it doesn't sound super convincing from some Democrats. Maybe it'd be more convincing, as Bernie says, if they turn down all billionaire money. But That's the message everywhere. And in that Florida race, what is it now? It's March 31st. So I'm thinking 2-3 weeks ago, I was talking to Democrats who were annoyed that Josh Weil was raising all this money because they said, yeah, the best we can do here is the margin shrinks a bit. We really wish this money was going to other places. We wish this was going to people who could win special elections like this Lancaster County race, which they won, the state Senate race last week. They're a different two now because Fine ran such a bad campaign that they don't think they can win this, but they think it was the verge of being a low single digit 5-point race that make Republicans scared. And they were really happy that at least Stefanik pulled out. But you're right. The messaging was not send a message against Donald Trump. I remember back in 2018, Andrew Gillum ran for governor of Florida, and during the primary, when it was just Democrats paying attention, in his ad, he said he supported impeaching Trump. They really thought bringing him into this race, he's so unpopular. That's a way to get over it. They don't think that anymore. It is maybe Trump's approval rating goes down over the next 2 years, but they think it's attack the weaker people around him. That's the way you do it.
Well, I gotta also think that when you're talking about low turnout, which means, high information and,
engaged voters.
highly engaged and high propensity to vote voters, they all know, like Elon, they don't think Elon Musk just showed up on his own. When you say Musk, they hear Trump. It's just that when you say Musk to less engaged Republican voters, they don't necessarily hear Trump.
Well, but if you say Trump, you have the risk of
that's what I'm saying. Engaging those
low
people.
income voters,
right? The low, not
low
low
propensity. Sorry,
yeah.
But I do find it's like the ad, the way that Weil is framing them as extreme and focusing on Medicaid and Social Security feels unique as well. I mean, I guess it's also specific to Florida, given the level of retirees there, but if they're talking about single-digit margins here between the two, Waltz won this district in November by 33 points.
Yes, so this should be a safe seat. It's Daytona Beach, and then there are retirees in the district. That is the messaging that has worked. But all special elections, every election until 2028, is going to have a smaller pool of voters than a presidential. Every special election, not to oversimplify it, but a little bit to oversimplify it, is about getting as many of your presidential voters out as possible. The new people joining, the new voters, turning 18, etc., coming in, that is a smaller part of it. And so even in the Space Coast in Florida, if you got, let's say, 70% of the 2024 Democratic vote out and 40% of the Republican vote, that's how you win it. But you're not assuming you're converting more people. So this is going to Democrats and saying that. It's just that point Sam was making, that this is not saying cast a vote against Trump. It is saying here is something that I don't want to make up a poll number in this district, but given that Republicans have given up saying that we're going to cut Social Security, let's say that message is like an 80% message, even in a Republican district. Yeah, that's how you go for it. But it's a way to also tell your Democratic voters, this is an election coming up, please turn out. It's not quite fair. And Trump has posted about it. Trump said vote in this race, but
it just froze.
I lost Dave.
In Jr., I essentially changed the circumstance. When I was there with John Jr., Republicans wanted Trump to rally and to show up and to have something for Brad Schimmel, and that obviously never happened. He does get antsy if he thinks he might put skin in the game and be embarrassed. And Republicans had that's how they had their built the Wisconsin campaign, is we don't want to tell him get involved here because he might decide, oh, Republicans always lose those Wisconsin off-year races. I'm going to look stupid if I do this. They're both being genteel about how they mentioned Trump, except in Wisconsin, this mail that's going to Republicans. Now, the TV ads you'll see say this liberal judge is horrible and she's going to let criminals out of jail, et cetera, et cetera. The mail that Republicans are getting is saying support Donald Trump. The message that you do for somebody who's just going to turn on the Brewers game is a little bit different than the message you do to somebody who's in your books saying they voted for Trump in 2024.
You can tell directly Republican voters, in other words, vote for Trump in this race. But if you start, they're afraid of wielding Trump as well, because that might motivate more people to come out to vote against Trump. I mean, this is what. All right. Just lastly, what are the implications? What are the implications for legislation and candidates, Republicans, in the House in particular, when a seat that was won by Waltz at 33 points comes in as, let's say, a 9-point race that the Democrat loses by 9 points? I mean, never mind wins, but like, what does that signal to them? How does that change their calculation going into 2026?
Well, you don't have Republicans who are that nervous about winning right now anywhere. They'll change this. The official Republican position is that they're trying to expand this map. Mike Johnson has said this. They see seats that Trump lost by less than 5 points as targets, and this is putting some ice water on that. That you're not going to hear Republicans say this is the year we're going to take back like Mikey Sherrill's seat in New Jersey or something, or this is the year we're going to beat Eugene Binman. They're starting to get a little more realistic about where they can compete. Who is actually scared enough to change their votes because of this? Not that many Republicans compared to 8 years ago. They're really almost nobody in a. I think it's 3 people who are in seats, Republicans who are in seats that Harris won. They're already pretty open and speaking out against the party in a bad news cycle, like Brian Fitzpatrick in Pennsylvania and Don Bacon in Nebraska. These have been very hard for Democrats to beat because they run ahead of the party. And they're already trying to find votes they can break from the party on. They just keep voting with them on these spending bills because the premise of every spending bill this year, and this is pretty new, is that whatever you spend, DOGE is not going to, don't worry about it. DOGE is illegally going to, well, they don't say illegally, but DOGE is, until a court stops us, DOGE is going to cut this. So you've got guys in competitive seats being much more confident they were 8 years ago in voting for Trump. But what happens if
that's a massive failure of Chuck Schumer's, incidentally, because that's going on and they're getting their cake and eating it too. And Chuck Schumer just gave them a rubber stamp to do that. But putting that aside, the only argument
Schumer can make is that, but if we put in a shutdown, then they'd be doing the same thing. Russ would be saying, "Great."
Yes, except for they wouldn't be able to. They'd either have to have their cake or they'd have to eat it. They wouldn't get both. That's the point.
Yeah, he sucked that down. Everyone's angry about how it went. But the next voting will happen on actual spending programs, outlays. Which tax cuts are we going to extend? Is there a Republican who says, I'm politically kind of nervous about supporting this extension of tax cuts if it doesn't include, let's say, free IVF, which Trump ran on, or no tax on tips, which he ran on? If it does involve cutting Medicaid payments, am I worried about that? Am I worried if they talk about block granting Medicaid? You do have a couple people who might be nervous enough to not support that. And then what happens? Then you have to go back to the House drawing board and go to Democrats and say, can you fund this thing that doesn't go all the way? They have no Democrats playing ball with them. They kind of have Jerry Golden in Maine in the House, and when there is when the shutdown's on the table, they have John Fetterman, they have some senators. But which Republicans are confident that they could go to voters and defend any kind of entitlement cut? Not that many are worried about this, but let's say 3 of them are, 4 of them are. That's enough.
That's all you need. I mean, so
that would be enough in this climate. And so
certainly
they're going to replace these. They're going to actually have a little more wiggle room after these special elections, because if Randy Fine wins, then their majority goes up and they can lose 3 votes and pass something. But that means 4 people. If Mike Lawler decides something's tough for him because he wants to run for governor of New York and he can't defend something that they're doing, that becomes a problem. Yeah, that's where they're trying to get back to. It's just that's normal politics, and normal politics do not exist under DOGE and impoundment, because the president can say, "I'm signing this bill, but it's not real." If a Republican calls me and tells me not to spend this money, I won't spend it.
Dave Weigel, really appreciate your laying this out for us. The stakes are really big for these elections, much more so than I think people would have anticipated, 6 months ago, certainly.
I think Elon's saying that the judgment of history or something depends on Wisconsin.
The future of Western civilization.
We may not make it to Mars after all,
yeah.
if this race in Wisconsin. But Dave Weigel, really appreciate it. We'll put a link to your Semafor stuff. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, guys.
Thanks, Dave.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.